Well, welcome to another episode of Spirit Societas. I'm so glad to have you with us today. And today we've got a wonderful guest. Her name is Hope Fitzgerald. She's a medium and midwife to the afterlife. She's a spiritual guide as well as being a dowser. And she's got tremendous experience because for 30 years she's been really utilizing what she refers to as intuitive dowsing to help people really increase and accelerate these insights into life and their different transformations. She's also an energy healer, certified neurofeedback practitioner, which is tremendous, as well as a death doula that we were talking about. But she also integrates sound, Reiki, and essential oils into her work. So she basically, she's kind of like the soup to nuts guru, what I'll refer to her as. So with that, Hope, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I know it's kind of hard when people say, well, what do you do? I'm like,
It's a broad capability that you bring to the table.
That's what a lifetime of study will do for you.
I'll tell you. So I love the fact that you're both a medium and a midwife to the afterlife, aka a death doula, because you're serving literally two side to the same coin. How did you, I guess let's start with the medium side. How did you get to this beautiful connection that being a medium? Was it something that was already in your family? Or was it more of an adult awakening? How did you come into that?
That's so interesting. People rarely ask me that question first. That's great. Well, the mediumship, which I'll also call channeling, came later. I wasn't looking for it. Let's put it that way. I always
never are.
I was always fascinated and read a lot of books about life between lives, near-death experiences, channeled books, mediums. Written books, kind of the same thing. But so I've been fascinated by that for many decades. And in fact, as a kid, I was very spiritually inclined. I asked my mother to take me to all the houses of worship in our town when I was 9.
Wow.
I was looking for something. I couldn't put my finger on it. And I want to say I didn't actually find it in any of those, because God bless her, she did take me to all of them. So when I was 17, I learned transcendental meditation, and that started tipping me into another world. Mm-hmm. And I started to study with people who were energy healers. I went to Findhorn, the spiritual community in Scotland, when I was 21. And that just opened up the whole thing. And then I just went about having a normal life and then having my spiritual life on 2 parallel tracks, right?
Yes.
Because back then, it wasn't really safe to talk. You got a lot of raised eyebrows and people subtly moving away from you. So
funny how that happens.
It's funny. So I just kept it on the down low, but I kept reading and learning and taking classes. That's when I learned Reiki and all kinds of things. But so fast forward, I started working with sound in the early 2000s. I got a set of crystal bowls, got 9 bowls, and I started having weekly meditations at my house. And these bowls just started to open up a whole new area for me. I couldn't also put my finger on it, but I could just feel that not only was I changing, but so were the people in the group. Then we kept that group together for 5 years.
Like doing sound healings and whatnot.
Just not even intentionally, just meditating with the sound. Okay.
Letting the bowls do the healing.
The bowls, and by that point, I had been dowsing for about 15 years. And so I would douse and ask the 9 bowls, who wants to sing today?
Okay.
Because based on the gathering, it wasn't always the same people, what was needed. And so literally a bowl would raise its hand. Everybody else would be quiet, and that bowl would say, me. And then I'd take that bowl. And it was uncanny how appropriate, because each bowl represents a chakra and has a different tone. And when you understand what each one means, turns out that's exactly what the group as a whole was kind of dealing with. It was amazing.
And different vibrations also.
Yeah.
So it's actually going to where the vibration is needed.
That's right. And it was so specific. And I never knew in advance. I'd ask right before the meditation. I'd pull the bowl out and go and do it. And then afterwards, we would find all these things out. It was pretty amazing.
That's great.
Anyway, and then I had the arrival walking across my living room one day of a vision, which turned into a series of 3 visions.
Wow.
Now, I was not used to having visions, so this was kind of off the charts for me. But it was a massive wave, a single wave moving towards me, beautiful turquoisey color, not threatening, but there was a kind of like a ticker tape byline running across the bottom that I could see here, see in my third eye, not literally see with my eyes.
In the mind's eye.
Yeah, and this is the first time that I've had something so vivid. Yeah, it's kind of like an imprint on top of the real room, let's say, almost like a cellophane imprint.
Yes,
I don't even know how to.
That's a great description.
Yeah. So there it was, and the byline says, this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet. Now, this is the end of 2010. It will be moving around the planet and anchoring in at the end of 2011. If you choose to resist it, things will go more difficultly for you than if you swim with it, surf it, go with the flow, basically.
Right, yeah.
Then the wave turns on its side. So now it's a big curling, almost like a letter C, and where you'd expect a surfer to come through the barrel or something. And in that position, the byline was, as the water moves away from the shore and deepens into the seabed to get its energy to create the crest, that's how the physics of a wave works.
Interesting.
So should you, meaning me, but meaning all of us, leave your book learning on the shore, go to the earth, deepen into the wisdom and the wisdom keepers of the earth for your knowledge, and then mix that with whatever this push of evolution, this incoming push was. And then the next thing that happened was that cresting wave didn't just fall down into the water. It turned into a figure 8, a standing figure 8 of flowing water.
Wow.
And there was no byline. And it didn't go away.
It's just like the infinity sign, only the number 8.
Correct. And that hung out in front of my third eye about 18 inches high for a couple of days.
Wow.
So I was going about my life, but I was aware of this kind of thing in front of me.
It wasn't leaving you.
No. And so it got a little annoying. And so I sat down with my dowsing rods. Now, as I said, I've been dowsing a long time by then. And I had been mostly self-taught with dowsing. So what is dowsing? It's a way of accessing information from other places. So sometimes it's from the earth, sometimes it's from your guide team, maybe it's from your higher self, maybe it's from the universe, whatever.
Yeah, because typically people associate dowsing with finding water, with those water rods, dowsing rods. That's kind of the typical understanding of dowsing.
Yes, exactly. That's the holdover. Actually, from it's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. This technology. It's probably the oldest energy technology on the planet. So anyway, I kind of developed a way of asking things that didn't necessarily have to stick with yes and no. I kind of, found other pathways. So I sat down and I said, what on earth is this? And what am I supposed to do about it? And that's over a series of sessions. I was told, oh, this has a name. You can call it the infinity wave. It represents, it's a metaphor, it represents a huge energetic that is new to the planet. It's a higher frequency of love and compassion than we've ever had before. We're ready for it. we need it now. This is a loving gift from the universe to help us through the times that are ahead. Now remember, this is 2010, and we didn't know what was ahead, but we were given this to start practicing, to learn to be in flow.
Boy, they gave us 15 years to practice, didn't
they? They gave us, yeah, they gave us good 9 years to practice, 10 years.
That too.
So anyway, I said, well, okay. I mean, all of this is very, what? Oh yeah. And Hope, we want you to teach about it. And I said, no, I don't want to do that.
I'm not going to teach that. I'll think I'm crazy.
Exactly. And I don't even know what it is. And, I've taught many things in my life, and I'm pretty buttoned up as a teacher. I already know what you start with the end in mind. Like, what do I want them to walk out of the door with? So I work it back. I'm very systematic. I think this was like, go into the deep end and just pedal, because so, you really, I don't say no to spirit, ultimately, and because it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, what are we doing here anyway? We're here to be in cooperation with our soul's highest purpose. And if we say no to that, it's not gonna go well. So I'll show a quick picture of the infinity wave, just how it basically, this is the idea of how it came to me. It's figure 8 of flowing water. So then I said, okay, I dowsed for how I was supposed to teach this, how many workshops, blah, blah, blah. I mapped it all out. And my first workshop was going to be the end of January 2011. So at that point, I had no clue what I was teaching. They said it was a 10th dimensional energy of love and compassion. Okay, right. Okay, well, what do I do with that? So I sat down with my dear friend once a week with my dowsing rods, and I said, I've got to figure this out. Maybe if I douse about it, I'll get more information. And as I sat down and I kind of got centered and all that, all of a sudden, out of my mouth, are these voices, these really low, slow voices. And every word was perfectly strung together, that by the end of the session, there was a practice. There was a meditation. And I thought, well, that clearly wasn't me, because I could see the letters, I could see the words dropping down like a tube in my mind. And there were times when I didn't like a word and I'd try not to say it, and they kept dropping the same word in, so then I realized, okay, I just need to get out of the way and let this thing.
You just got to surrender to it. Trust that it's coming in right and surrender to what they're giving you.
And that really was the lesson of the whole thing, was surrendering completely to something that was unknown to me, something that I had raised my hand and said that I'm a willing vessel, and so that surrender, even for somebody who has been a lifelong student of spirituality and all of that, that surrender, that last fingernails on the cliff, is terrifying.
Yeah.
But that's where all the juice is. That's where every benefit is.
That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. That's where, and we don't just get to cling to one cliff. There are more cliffs ahead, but each time it gets a little easier, because when you let go and the universe catches you, or whatever, fill in the blank, whatever you want to call it, that's when you're working hand in hand with something else, something bigger. And it's a wonderful freedom that follows that.
Interesting. So you started to channel these voices, these words, these phrases, these understandings as to what it was teaching you, and as a result, you were able to begin to teach what they were giving you.
Yeah.
And that was really sort of like your ability to channel what was coming from them.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
great.
And I
So
didn't know, for a long time, just so people understand, like a lot of people ask, well, when you're dowsing, who are you talking to? Or when you're, did you know who you were talking to? I honestly didn't want to know because I had a little distrust of channelers.
yeah,
Honestly, I felt like, look, we all have these energy fields, so the information is trying to come in through our energy field and it's bound to get distorted. So when I would listen to channelers in the past, I would just kind of seek out the golden nuggets of, oh, that sounds like truth, that sounds like pure information, and let the rest go. And then when I started doing it, I had to eat some humble pie because I'm like, oh God, now I'm doing this.
Now I got to do
it. And so I really, really concentrated on getting out of the way as much as possible. And the beautiful thing was the way they had set up these workshops was one weekend a month for 3 months. And by the third workshop, I had 9 practices. When each one came in, of course, I had no idea what was going to come through. And sometimes I would be sitting there scratching my head. What does this have to do with evolution? Because the whole workshop was about taking an evolutionary leap, spiritually speaking. But when I got to the end and I looked back, I could never have figured it out myself. I saw this step-by-step process that, in fact, provided a spiritual leap for people, and the proof is in the pudding because the people in the workshops were definitely changed, like seriously changed.
Yeah, well, that's what's so amazing, I find, is that the intelligence of spirit is so amazing. Anytime I connect with spirit, giving a reading or something, I've got to pinch myself because their intelligence just blows me out of the water. Or when I'm doing a trance session, their intelligence comes out. It's amazing. And to your point, I'm always worried, just like you. Is the medium's own bias going to color the message? But then you look back, and then the majority of what's coming out, it may have certain references that might have already been there, but the messages underlying it are just they're incredible. You're like, wow, you have to scratch your head and say that's pretty amazing. That's not something that's coming from any human mind. That's beyond that.
Definitely. And I think, if you do this, that it's really about getting out of the way and being non-attached to whoever you're seeing. That's why I didn't want to know, because I've been to channels who go, I'm channeling, Isis, or I'm channeling, whatever. And there's an ego attachment there.
There is.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to be tempted in any way to be doing that. So
the number of times I'll always be bringing forth somebody, but more often than not, I don't really know exactly who it is. The sitters or the group that's in front, they'll oftentimes have a clue, but I'm like, all I know is I'm just held in this incredible feeling of energy and power and love. I'm just like, I don't want to come out of this. This is just feeling too good. And I know I'm sort of I'm somewhere in the back of the room, kind of listening and watching. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Who's that person talking?
Exactly.
And you're just gone. And the thing I find, and when I'm trying to teach people, is that when people try too hard, they can't get anywhere because they're trying. It's when you let go and just let things happen and just allow, and that goes to the surrender concept. When you just fall back and let spirit catch you, to your phrase, that's when all of a sudden they come through, because you're no longer attached. You're no longer trying to make it happen, because you're not going to make it happen. You're just the instrument. They're going to use you to bring it forward. That's
right. And it's like a subtle but profound flip of the switch.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing, I mean, nowadays, often, somebody will announce themselves because I do these channeled meditations nearly every week now, for online. And sometimes I know who they are, sometimes I don't, but it doesn't matter because the wisdom is always there.
Yeah.
And but sometimes I am told who they are, and especially in a smaller group, sometimes there are people who have certain energies like Mother Mary or something like that that are very important to them, and I won't know in advance, and then that being will show up, and it's always because there's somebody who just like has little shrines everywhere in their house, and like there's
Right.
somebody who's really tuned in, and then I find out later they tell me, and so so that is how the whole channeling thing started. But then I started to have, there were circumstances. So let me explain the mediumship piece. When I talk about being a medium, it's speaking to departed souls, not as opposed to the big overriding, archangels or Yeshua or like the big personalities, let's say, or the universe, or that kind of thing.
Or even just spirit guides.
I don't really get spirit guides so much. I get the big kahunas, and then
Ascended masters and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So channeling or being a medium for a beautiful departed soul is a little different place on the dial, right?
Right.
And I never thought of myself in that way. I never thought of myself. I just show up, whatever,
Right.
But sometimes what started to happen was I would have people come to me who could not get out of the grief loop.
Right.
When they lost somebody, and they were suffering so terribly. And in order to help them turn that into a spiral where they could start to come back to life, I just, thought, well, I wonder if I could speak to so-and-so for you right here, right now, and let's see what happens. And then that person, that soul would come through.
Wow.
And so I've done it only for friends, for family, for somebody in dire need.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to know that it's available and it can be done. It's not my main thing. But to your point at the very beginning, having assisted people in transitioning, and you're not just assisting the person who's transitioning, you're assisting the family and friends who are trying to deal with it. That's a huge part of it.
Right.
So I firmly believe that all of the death doula programs, all of the hospice programs, they should offer mediumship, because that is what finally kicks people into a better place. They still love and long for the person, but they have had some assurance that the person is okay, that they are forgiven for whatever it is that they might be hanging on to. Resentment goes away, guilt, all of those things. And the living human can then go on and live a better life.
Well, it's you bring up a great point, because it's so important that both the family and the person who's in the process of transitioning feel much more comfortable or get resolutions for whatever it is that happens to be nagging them. If it's the person in living who's the family, they're like, what's this? Are they okay? Do they know that we love them, and that whatever it is that they did doesn't matter. It's, we love them unconditionally, what have you. And then for the person who is transitioning, they want to know, okay, A, am I going to be okay? And what's it going to be like? And that's a whole nother story. And B, I want to give my family and my loved ones that are still here, my heartfelt, sympathies, condolences that A, I'm leaving, and B, whatever I might have done to have hurt you, let it go. I apologize in advance, and it's and it's that kind of ability to it's the opposite of being a birth doula. It's literally being a birth doula to, you know, the afterlife, to your point of being a midwife to the afterlife. You're nurturing them back home. You're saying, okay, well, we're going to birth you back home, but the birth process is a heck of a lot easier.
Yes. Well, I don't know. That's debatable.
Well, I would say when a child comes into the physical world, they come in crying. When spirit comes into the spirit world, I don't understand them to necessarily be crying when they arrive. They're more like, oh, thank God, that nightmare of a life is over. That was a nightmare.
Exactly. Oh man, it's so true. You know, I encourage people to, if they know of a good hypnotist who does past life regressions, I encourage people to do at least one, because and have that past life regression go fully through the death process of that incarnation, because you get to practice and see what it feels like to go from being human to just spirit. The lightening of the burden, the freedom. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. If we all did that, we would know, geez, it's okay. Yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be all right. You know,
have you, I was going to say, have you had, as a midwife to the afterlife, have you had wonderful experiences where you've, been with the person who's transitioning, and then some death doulas, I understand, actually go with the spirit and have their own, experience in the afterlife. Have you ever had that?
You mean at the same time?
Yeah, I had one guest on who was a death doula who was taken by the hand by the person who was transitioning, and they both went in. Their souls both went into spirit, and she got to see where this person was, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing."
No, I have not done that.
Okay. Right.
And I probably wouldn't do that. But I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't think I would do that.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm not sure. I don't know. That wouldn't be my thing.
Wouldn't be your thing. But have you've seen people transition, and you felt the energy shift from that. What's it like for you when you're helping the spirit transition? It's
the most sacred thing, most sacred experience there is. It is an honor to be a part of it. And and I think this is important for people to know, because a lot of people are incredibly hung up on the fact that I didn't get there in time.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want people to understand that I believe these things are orchestrated. That the person who is departing is opening and closing the doors to who is there. And it's not meant to be a recrimination in any way. It is a loving orchestration. And sometimes, in fact, maybe half of the people who are transitioning want to do it alone.
Oh, really?
Yes. And we get very hung up as humans. We've got to be with them when they die. We have to be, when they can't easily let go, because all our love and our sadness and all of that is very heavy, and it weighs on the person, and the person is trying to loosen themselves from this matrix.
Oh, okay.
And all of those emotions are like heavy bags.
Yeah.
Heavy weight.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
I learned this early on, and so what I always tell people is every hour, step out for 10 minutes. Even if the person is in a coma, you tell them, we're going to go get a coffee. We'll be back in 10 minutes. And so you have the room to yourself. And that way, they are given this opportunity if they want to go by themselves. And if they don't, then, the things will be orchestrated. And it's meant to be that way. And, and we need to not take it as a personal affront or a failing on our part or any of those things.
That's great. Yeah, and we know we've got these 3 specific exit points, and we design what the exit points are, and when we're ready to take that exit point. And it's all, based on the contract that was written long before we ever got here.
Exactly. We did plan it out. So,
and it would be very interesting to, and I like your idea of everybody at least doing one regression, past life regression, where you get to understand not only what your past life was, but what your life between life was like, and mm-hmm. what the changes have been. Mm-hmm. Not every hypnotist is or past life regression therapist is going to be able to take you to that point, but those who are experienced, sometimes they do that inadvertently.
Yeah, exactly. And it just helps us to rest more comfortably with the thought of our death. And this is one of the things that I do with my colleague Gary Malkin. We have a whole workshop about it's called Graceful Passages, from grief to gratitude, and it's based on his and his partner's beautiful work called Graceful Passages, a series of spoken word and song to help to loosen the system, help to loosen the person who's transitioning and also all their loved ones.
Yeah. And
so our workshop helps to bring people to the point where they can actually confront their end date, that there is going to be a bookend. Mm-hmm. And most of us don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
And in not looking at that, we're actually robbing ourselves of the preciousness of life. Because we keep turning away, keeping busy, it's not really happening. But once we confront it, we say, okay, I have an end date. Now all my decisions are going to be different.
Right.
I'm going to be making decisions based on that bookend.
Could you then also make the further argument that not only is it a bookend, but in fact it's a continuum, because as your spirit, that spirit continues
for sure.
Onward, so that based on that continuum, you can say, hey, listen, I'm just going to live my life to the fullest now, and I'm going to continue living my life even more so as I transition to an even, more wonderful, more fulfilling existence that's not weighed down by the human pain and suffering that we all have to, and the challenges we all have to deal with.
Well, for sure. Absolutely. I just mean that time is precious and limited here.
Yeah.
And so what was it you came in here to do?
You're right.
Right. And if you haven't been doing it, now's the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, don't waste another second.
Well, and that's the big question. Everybody's like saying, what's my purpose? Why am I here? So we find so many people these days who are like struggling with, am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I doing the right thing? Am I fulfilling my soul contract? Well, you got to go inside to find that. You got to fulfill that. And it's really where I tell people, it's follow your heart. Your heart will let you know where you're going and where your purpose truly lies.
Well, that is so true. But as Buddha said, the longest road is from the head to the heart. And most people are confused.
Right.
Many people. We are, because our minds are so freaking busy.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
And they get interfering with all the heart stuff. So, this is where the dowsing comes in handy.
Ah, okay.
This is where it's not just for water. It's also tuning into a person's higher self, guide team, whatever it is. I tune into the universe, and then we start to parse it out. What is your purpose? And that's not a yes or no question. So we have to sort of unravel it.
Yeah.
But it ultimately there is an answer,
Yeah.
And just I know for myself, before the wave came in, I didn't know what my purpose was. I just knew that I have a big spiritual. That's just who I am. So, but what it was supposed to turn into, I had no clue and didn't even want it to. But once I understood, I wrote this into my story, and this is exactly what I wanted for myself. And I was like, oh, darn it. But it has provided so much growth. Oh my gosh. And relief that I finally had my mission.
Right. And
you know.
it's so funny because sometimes when we look back and we say, boy, I signed this soul contract. What in the world was I thinking?
I know. I had a really interesting channeling session one day, about 10 years ago, where I don't even remember what my intention was for give me some guidance, folks out there, whatever it was. And you know, you can raise an eyebrow at this one, but in comes spelled out creator. Now, my take on that is it's really more like a force. It's a creative force, but we'll just use the word creator for now.
Okay. Yep.
And basically was asking, how does this whole thing work? And I don't know if you remember a game when you were a kid called the Game of Life.
Oh yeah.
Yes, with the little cars and little people, and we go around. Right?
Yep.
And so what's planted in my head is a huge Game of Life board, and on top of that is a game and field, a track and field kind of event, so that you have hurdles and high jumps.
Oh yeah.
You know, so now you've got your little car, you've got these hurdles and high jumps all around the Game of Life board.
Yep.
And Creator was saying, you set up your game. You take plenty of time to set up your Game of Life board.
Oh yes.
And by the way, it was my favorite game as a kid, so it's funny that
that's why they used it.
Right, exactly.
But it's quite apropos.
It is so apropos. So you set this whole thing up. You know the challenges that you wanted to address in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And so you set it up so that when it got to one of those crunchy places, you would have you'd set the bar on the high jump or the hurdle just high enough so it's hard to get over, but you could do it.
Yep.
And if you didn't make it the first time, then you gather your little helpful people, those little pink and blue people, and you stick them in your car, and you know, maybe you get some assistance so you can make it over the next time. And you keep circling around until you do that, and then you can go along your way. And the whole goal is to get to the end of the Game of Life and having accomplished all the things you wanted. Okay, great. And we've heard this before in a different way, a different explanation. So that wasn't that revelatory to me, but here's what was. Two things. So I said, so it's a test, you know, can I make it through all of these things? And Creator, I could hear the laughter. It's like, no, you didn't say dummy, but yeah, no, it's a game. Okay. But here's the piece that I love the most. I'm thinking I'm seriously setting this thing up. I'm, that's where the test came in. Like I'm making it such a heavy task.
Sure.
No. It was with sheer delight, excitement, like cheerleading. I am so excited. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to master all these things. When I get to the end, I'm going to feel so great. I'm going to have, and that kind of energy is really what our higher selves are. Our higher selves
that's so perfectly said,
cheerleading us the whole way. So now when I get to one of these hurdles, I instantly ask, what would my guide team have me do? What are they rooting for me?
Rooting for, I love
what
it.
Is my highest self rooting for me to choose?
That's such a different perspective, because our ego minds have gotten us to a point where when we encounter a serious challenge or a real difficult time, we're like, this is difficult and hard, and I'm uncomfortable, and I'm unhappy, and negative. Whereas, to your point, our higher selves, our soul is rooting us on, saying, you can do it, and positive, because they're coming at it from a place of love, whereas the ego mind is coming at it from a place of, I don't want to say lack of love, but defensiveness. and the a lower vibration. So they're very different good concepts, very different angles.
Yeah.
So I love that cheerleading aspect, because when I've read somewhere and also heard and read automatic writings and also trance sessions where guides have come through to that very point. They say, no, when you're putting your soul contract together, you're doing it as a way of having fun, as a way of trying to, create these things that you're trying to learn. Yes, but you're trying to learn it in a fun way. In the game of life, you're trying to learn fun things. It's all a positive way, and to the point where some apparently so many souls before they incarnate try to overdo their fun challenges because they think, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. They try to get everybody on board and try to, help them with their challenges, and then they finally have to present their plan or their contract to some group that accepts them or allows it to go on. And more often than not, the advisors come by and say, why don't you scale it down just a little bit? You're getting a little too enthusiastic.
Trying to
your game of life is just, your game of life is just a little too extreme. Why don't we just make it a little more fun?
Exactly. Well, it kind of depends on if it's your last lifetime or not.
Yeah.
So if it's your last one, you're going to try to squeeze in as much as possible.
Exactly, and that's so, it's so amazing. What would you say has been the most interesting either channeling experience or midlife or midwife experience you've had that you think has been perhaps the most revealing or powerful at this point?
That is really okay. I'll tell you about a really big surprise. So this was the first year of doing the workshops, 2011. And by the way, I went straight to the internet to see if there were infinity signs out there being used for anything, and there weren't. And I know that's hard to believe nowadays because it's virtually everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
They said anchored in at the end of 2011. Sure enough, January 2012, somebody hands me a cappuccino with the infinity sign in it. And that was the beginning. And it started, and then it was on logos. But I looked, a flood. So this is not, as I said at the beginning, and then I'll answer your question, the infinity wave is a metaphor. It's a symbol for something much bigger, much like if you look at a cross, that symbolizes something much bigger. So this is now permeated our entire planetary grid. This level of love and compassion is 10th dimensional, whatever, it's available to us. So I'm kind of setting that up because it was between the second and third original workshops in March 2011. It was the day before Easter. Now, I had in my life always loved the stories of Jesus and this and that, but I could not get close to the being of Jesus. I don't know why. I tried. I couldn't get there. So I just settled on, okay, what the Unity Church calls him is the master way shower. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that.
Okay.
And anyway, I wake up in the morning and everybody's out of the house. I don't know where they are. But I'm in this horrible, despairing, like on the verge of tears. Emotionally, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't shake it. I mean, usually when you have something like that, you can trace it down. Well, somebody said something to me or blah, 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 I could not, I don't know what was going on. So I went to my office and I thought, well, I'll just try to put it aside and work. And I'm sitting there at my desk, and the next thing I know, I have a again, with my whatever it is, ability to see,
Your mind's eye.
There's a little Jesus, like this big, and standing behind him are Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary.
Huh.
They're this size.
Wow.
And he starts, he's just talking just you and me, we're talking like this, and we're having a chat, picking up like we were talking yesterday.
Like we're old friends.
Yes. And he's talking to me, and I'm going, blah, 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 you know.
What do I say now?
I couldn't believe it. But what was so amazing, and this is, I want people to hear this because, you know, our conscious minds are not always aware. This is an obvious statement, but our conscious minds are often not aware of the programming that is running beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
The first emotion that came up was unworthiness.
Ah, yes.
Now, I was not raised a Catholic. I was not raised as I was a Presbyterian. They didn't hammer hard into unworthiness, but it was my first instinct. And
ego. It sounds like it's a very ego mind.
No, it's not. It came from the bottom of my soul.
Oh, okay.
A feeling that in some way I was not worthy of this visit. I was not worthy of this.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I get it. Yep.
Got it. And that's been hammered into us for thousands of years.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And we have to understand that these thought forms become material. They become
as
embedded.
Buddha said, all that we are is a result of what we have thought.
Yes. And Yeshua, I call him Yeshua now, but he explained to me later how that works. And so anyway, this feeling of unworthiness came up, and I'm starting to cry like, oh, you got it, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, why shouldn't I talk to you? We talk all the time. It's like, no big deal. And so I realized, okay. I completely dropped it.
Yeah.
Then we had this conversation. He mostly talked. And it was so profound to witness that peace that had actually held me back in so many ways, and I had no clue about it.
Yeah.
No clue. So that channeling, or that visit, was the beginning of many, and what he was talking about how these thought forms become cellular over thousands of years. And what he was busy doing was cleansing the human race of these erroneous thought forms.
Yeah.
And the infinity wave is a cleansing device.
Oh, okay.
So when we think of water, I mean, there's so many things about the geometry in the water that we won't go into. We don't have time. But we clean with water.
Right.
So when you think about charged water full of love and compassion, and then you start to apply that to your physical body, it's going to clean it out. Because love and compassion, nothing can live. It's like viruses can't live.
Yeah, exactly.
Thought forms that are negative can't live in the presence of that level of love and compassion.
It's like doing a meditation where you're doing a cleansing meditation, and you just envision yourself standing underneath a cleansing waterfall. And the water just cleanses every either negative vibration, or it helps you open up your chakras. It's just that same idea, and it's all water doing that.
Yes, and I would suggest you turn that into a figure 8 and let it cleanse you that way.
Interesting. Even better.
Yeah. Trust me on that one.
Okay, I will trust. It works even better. Yeah, think of it this way: you get double the feedback as opposed to one direction. It's coming back and doing it, and it'll just keep on feeding on itself. Oh, I like that idea. That's great. I think I'll do that now.
Great.
It'll just keep, because that way it's like, you've got the wave, and you can continue. Well, actually, wow, I never even, you just helped me discover something, because all this time when I've been doing cycling my energy, where I'm allowing the energy to come up from Mother Earth, and I'm likewise allowing energy to come down from the universe, and it cycles throughout my chakras. This whole time it's been doing the infinity wave, and I never even realized that. Mm-hmm. I just knew I was not recycling. It was constantly cycling through from two different directions. That's the infinity wave, and I wasn't even. Oh, wow! Wow! There you go. You revealed something to me. Holy smokes! Okay. Hello, McFly.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have learned something new. Well, that's one of the purposes of being in the human life, is to learn, and that's what we just did.
That's it.
That's great, and it's very interesting that you mentioned your visit with Jesus, and he goes, "Why wouldn't I talk to you? I do all the time." And I had that experience once when I was in sort of a light trance doing an automatic writing, and this was a January of some year. I can't even remember what year it was. And this beautiful being started writing, and I just felt like this was the most powerful, beautiful, most loving being to have ever connected with me. And as I came out of it and I read it, it was definitely had to be positively Jesus. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm just a regular person. He wouldn't talk to me. I mean, it's like Moses.
There you go.
He talks to Moses. I'm just this regular dude who.
There you go. That's what I'm saying, Chris. Yeah. And I try to. You just by having this podcast, you're doing this, but I don't think I'm anything special. I think this is available to all of us. It is part of our divine birthright.
Right.
And to go back to a point you made earlier, which I completely agree with, it's not something we seek after and try hard to do. It's something we allow. Mm-hmm. It's something we open to. It's something we invite. It's a completely different verbiage. Yeah. It's not acquired. It's not, we are all brought up to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, of first grade, second grade, third grade. And I'm going to achieve this, and then I'm going to graduate and achieve that, and then I'm going to graduate and achieve this. And we have this step ladder, this, kind of way of thinking, and it doesn't apply to spirituality. No. Spirituality is chop wood, carry water. Just keep opening to the moment. Yep. Keep being curious. Yep. Be like a child, as Jesus said. Be available. Yeah, and because it'll come in the back door.
And allow your inner child to reawaken, because we suppress our inner child to the point where that's our truth, that's our love, that's our joy. And as we become adults, we basically it's kind of like an ancient civilization that gets paved over by many other civilizations over time.
Exactly.
And so we've got to go down and excavate that inner child and bring it back to the surface, because that's our true being right there.
That's it.
That's what all love is. Great. Well, what if you were to give a piece of advice to a listener? What one piece of advice do you think you'd give them?
The advice that I listen to every day is that we come in with a soul, and we exit with a soul. How do you want that soul to be when it leaves? More faceted, more shiny, more learned, fill in the blank. But that's really what this whole thing is about, to develop that soul, let it evolve into something finer and something more beautiful. So
great. Well, perfect. That I think a lot of people can sink their teeth into that and go, yes, that's exactly the direction I want to expand, and that's really what it's about, is allowing ourselves to expand. So beautifully said. So thank you. And where can people get in contact with you? Should they want to learn more about this infinity wave and all of the other things you were talking about?
Spreadinfinitehope.com. That's and same on YouTube, all the places, sure. Facebook, etc. That's it. And you sign up for my weekly newsletter, and you'll be in the flow of all the things I do. And I take people around the world every year to sacred places, and I have workshops and things like that. So.
Great, wonderful retreats. Well, wonderful. There you have it. And well, thank you so much, Hope, for coming on. This has been, a wonderful conversation. And like we said in the beginning, it's all led by spirit. So this is wonderful. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Chris. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, great. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. And, if this is something that you've enjoyed, please remember to, like and subscribe. That way, we'll always be in your ear every Wednesday for a new episode. So with that, I'll be signing off. This is Chris sending you love and light, and I will see you next time. Until then, bye for now.